In this video, we're going to be adding Redux Toolkit to our web application. So you could see right now, if I try to sign in, go to the sign in page and go to an account that already exists, and let's suppose put the password in. If I go to the console screen, so over here we go to inspect and console. So you're going to see right now, if I go to, sorry, not the console, but I believe the network tab, when I sign in, you could see I get this, and this you could see in the response, I get this, right? Object response, and I want this saved in my globally, so that I could access it and change it accordingly. One thing I wanted to actually add on from the last part was that there was an error, like suppose if I gave my email and I gave a wrong password, there it used to infinitely go in a circle. Now it just says invalid password and we try again, right? But we could even write try again, but the thing I want to say here is that I just forgot one remaining load state. So over here we had that loading, right? Set loading. Over here where we had the try, we let the loading true. But in that, if the data wasn't successful, meaning when the data wasn't in the database, so you got a false, you have to set loading to false over here. And the same goes for the sign in. You just have to set loading to false here too. After that, everything is perfect. So let's go now into the next part of this, which is React Redux, and we have to go to the website Redux-Toolkit. So redux-toolkit.js.org, and if we look into this Redux Toolkit, the official opinionated batteries included tool set for efficient Redux development. So Redux Toolkit, get started. We click on get started, and we go to this part which is in the quick start. So in the quick start, we have this introduction and this installation. So install Redux Toolkit and React Redux. So we have to install this. Let's just copy this from the clipboard. We have to make sure we go to the client side of the project. So over here, this is client running, and this is my backend. We could either just open up a new terminal right here, and then you could just cd to client like this. Okay, and over here you could just right click and say npm install React Redux and Redux Toolkit. So right now it's going to install for us. After that, once it's installed, everything will be updated accordingly. So right now that's perfectly done. I would recommend just stop this and then reinstall this. I mean, npm run dev. This is the client folder and this is the backend folder. I could just remove this as well. This is the second one, so third one, and now we just have back to the two terminals. Okay, so now we're back here, and let's go to the next part, which is create a Redux store. So we have create a file named source, and then inside the folder you could basically create that folder anything you want, and store.js, and then import the configure store API from Redux Toolkit. We'll start by creating an empty Redux store and exporting it. So we have to create the store. This is JavaScript, and what we have to do right now is just create a folder in here. So let's go back here and make sure we close all of this stuff out. So close all. Okay, and then after that we go to this navigation and then collapse everything. Now in here we have to go to the client folder, and in here you have to go to the source folder, and in here we have to create a Redux folder. So I'm just going to create a folder called Redux. This is normally how by practice it goes like this, and inside the Redux folder we create a file called store.js. okay, and now it will contain the code that was over there. So let's just drag this on the right and put this on the left, and just copy this, and we just paste this right here. So right here. So over here you could see that we have import configure store from Redux Toolkit, and then we have export const store equal to configure store, and then we have reducer like that. So this is perfectly done, fine, and this is how we basically create that store.js file. What we want to do now is we have to this creates a Redux store, and also automatically configure the Redux DevTools extension so that you can inspect the store while developing. And now after that, provide the Redux store to React. What we got to do now is provide it to React, and to do that we have to, once the store is created, we can make it available to our React components by putting a React Redux provider around our application in source index.js. Import the Redux store we just created, put a provider around your app, and pass the store as a prop. So the thing is, we have to go back to the main.jsx right here, okay, and in here we have to just go. So you can see this is my application. We got to import the store, right? To import the store, it is so simple. What we got to do is, first of all, we're gonna have to go and say inside here, we're gonna have to say import So let me just maximize the screen again. Let me just maximize the screen. Okay, so right now what we want is this store, right? We want this store, configure store, whatever this is. We want this because it's const store, it's being exported. So we want to import it here, and we want to actually add the provider, which is like this, okay? So first we're going to say import store from that store, right? That's the same line. So import, wait a minute, import store from, and then we have this slash Redux folder, and then inside store.js. One other thing that we want to do is we want to import this other line, which is import provider from, so import provider, okay? So you could basically put a space, provider, okay? Provider, and then we have from React, and then we have React hyphen Redux, so Redux like that. Okay, so this is the store. So we basically put a space here, like that, and from you basically put, I normally put double quotes here, but yeah, like that. Okay, so we have a store imported and the provider, and that's from React Redux. And we now have to change this from React strict DOM, right? We have to delete this, and we have to change this to provider, what we're using up on there. And then in here we have to pass in the store is equal to the object, and then you pass in the store that you imported. That's basically it, and you know, everything else seems good. The next step after that we have to do is create a Redux state slice. So what is this stuff? I mean, let's go back here. So let's go here, and you can see over here that we have a Redux state slice. What could this be? Well, add a new file named source/features counter, and then we have counter.js. Now this is according to counter slice. What we have to do is create a user slice according to our needs, right? So we have to add a new file, and ignore this for now. We're gonna, I'll tell you, in that file import the create slice API from Redux Toolkit. So we're basically importing this create slice, okay? And then after creating a slice requires a string name to identify the slice, an initial value, and then you basically have the value set, and one or more reducer functions to define how the state can be updated. So one or more reducer functions. Once a slice is created, we can export the generated Redux action creators and the reducer function for the whole slice. So what we could do is, first of all, let's go to this folder structure, and we have to create this slice, okay? And ours is going to be called a user slice instead of what it says counter slice here. So what we go here is inside the Redux folder, we have to create a new folder. So in the source, in the client folder, in the source folder, you have the Redux folder, and here you create another folder which is going to be called user folder. And inside the user folder, we have a file which is going to be called user slice.js. So user slice slice.js. Okay. Now over here, what we want to do is, first of all, we have to create our user slice. So let's create our user slice and see how this works. So not Copilot. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to say import the create slice that they're saying from React Redux, right? So basically at Redux Redux.js and /toolkit, right? So we got that, and then after that we have to create some initial values. So initial state, okay? Initial state for this will be current. Now, one I want to tell you, current user will be some of the states. Like suppose right now in the beginning there would not be any user, so we have to make it as null. We have to have an error and loading, remember? So like just like how we were doing for user sign in and sign out, because this is basically a user, right? First, it's not created. When you sign up, you basically create a user, right? And that user has an error state that could be null or true or false, whatever. And it could also have a loading state, whether it's loading, you know, or not. So basically this is not the right way to say it, but it's colon and then this. And then we have loading, and then this could be false, like this. Okay, like FALSE, comma. So now we're done with this, and semicolon there. Okay, now we have this initial state created. What we do is we create our user slice. So we say user slice like this, SLICE, and we can say create slice. Okay, this create slice is activated, and in here we have to pass in the name of our state. So basically what we're going to be doing is the name of our user slice would be called anything like user, just general. And then we have the initial states, what we have to pass in, that are on the top, you could see, right? So we have to pass in those initial states, and then we have to put in reducers. So reducers are special like functions that perform actions, like suppose login success, login start, login success, and login failure. Okay, so this is what's going to happen, and normally for us it's going to be called sign in. So instead of login, we could say sign in start. So what happens during the starting phase, st, and then we have colon state, and then in here we have state dot loading is equal to true. Okay, and we have state dot error is equal to null. Okay, so you could see over here we have the first one, and I'm going to explain what this means. Sign in start means when our state generally is going to have a loading that will be set to true and an error that will be set to null, because we're just trying to sign in. Go to the application, which is right here. We're basically trying to sign in. So initially it would when I click on it, it will have the loading state set to true. After this sign in start, we'll have the next part, which is sign in success. Okay, so we'll comma and we'll say sign in success. I don't know why that went there. Sign in success, and in here we have state, and then we have action, and then over here we have over here like this. So over here we have sign in success, state, and action. And over here what we're gonna do is, suppose we have the state, which is the loading state, would be either loading error, and then we also have an action payload. Remember that was coming from the inspect in the network tab. So it's not here anymore, but remember that payload that I was showing you, the response that's basically coming, that's the payload we have to store. So we could say state dot current user. Remember that user, we basically, oh man, it just created, it filled everything. So state, remember this, all this initial state. So we have current user, and we sign it to the action dot payload that comes from the response. And then we have state dot loading will set to false, because now we got the successfully got the data. And then we got the state dot error set to null. Same thing goes for the sign in failure. So we have sign in failure like this, and then we have this same thing, state, and then we have action, and then in here we have is equal to, and then we have state dot loading is set to false, and then we have state dot error. Okay, now this error could essentially have the action dot payload. So this action dot payload would have an error, and you could just put that error there as well. So you normally could put this on the top, and essentially what I would say is, instead of this, what we want to do is we want to also put on the state dot user, whatever that current user. And in the failure case, what you could do is current user would be null. Okay, would be null. Okay, so current user would not be null. I mean, I'm just mixing it up. It's not, there's no current user at all. So we were right over here. It's going to be state dot loading, which is false, and then because we're now no longer loading, and then we have state dot error, which is action dot payload, whatever that response came, and we put in the error state. Perfect. Everything was good. So just put a comma here, and then your object is basically ended here. So this one, reducers, and then in here we have the semicolon, which is right here. And then over here we have export, and then we have const, export const, and then in here we have sign in start, sign in success, and then we have sign in failure. We're basically exporting all these reducers. Let me maximize my screen so you can see a little more clearly. Now we have to export these reducers, these functions, so that we could use them in other places in our application, right? We're going to be having to using this. So we're basically we're exporting that from user slice. So user slice dot actions, like that. Okay. So once we're exporting this, so user slice dot actions, these are all the actions, right? Reducers. So now after that, we also have to export default. So we're basically exporting the reducers as well as the default user slice dot reducer. So basically we have to export this entire thing, right? So that's why we're exporting these two things. Now since it's default user slice dot reducer, we could just call it as we could basically open this up in our signin.jsx file. So over here, if we go to the signin.jsx file, let me just go there in the client side, and in here we have source, and then in here we have pages, and then here we have sign in. So over here in the signin.jsx, what you want to do is, remember that in the beginning we had this error message and loading. Well, now there's actually no need for this loading or error, because we could use that with the reducers. Now let me explain what I'm talking about. Let me delete this, and of course it's going to complain right now. So the thing is, what I'm going to do is essentially, remember right here where you could see this try, and in the try we have set loading to true and set error message to null, right? Instead of all that, we could, because this is set loading to true and error message to null, we're basically doing the same thing here, which is in the sign in start. We have set loading to true and error is equal to null, right? So why not we could just use this reducer instead of that? Yeah, so that's why I'm going to use the reducer. Now the thing is, to use that, we basically have to import it. So we have to import, and then over here we're going to have to use sign in, whatever is a sign in start, start, sign in success, and then we have sign in failure, and then we have that from sign in failure from, and then we have we basically have it from with a path, whatever it is. So dot dot, go back one step, and inside Redux, and then inside user, and then user slice dot js, right? So we want to get all of that, and what we want to do is we want to essentially use that with a dispatcher. Okay, we want to call this reducer function with a dispatcher. So that's why we need import, and then we have use dispatch. I mean, it knew what I wanted, so we want it from React Redux. Okay, so now over here we have to initialize our dispatcher too. So we could just say right after this states, I mean these states are bothering me, so I'm just going to remove them. Okay, so over here we're going to have const, and then we have dispatcher. So we basically have dispatch, and then we have is equal to, and then we have use dispatch. Okay, so that's basically it over there. And then over here in this part, where we want to do is we basically call this function. So it's basically dispatch, and then we have sign in start, like that. So it's basically this. Now it's just that. I mean, we didn't have to do anything else, and everything else looks good. And now what we're gonna do is, you could see over here we have if data dot success is not good, right? If it's not good, what you want to do is you want to dispatch the failure message instead of this stuff, right? So it's over here we have loading set to false, and then the data message. Remember in the user slice, you could see in a failure case you would have loading set to false and the error message, right, and the error state. So that's exactly what we want to do. We could just have this removed, and we could say dispatch. So and then we could have sign in failure, and then put data dot message. So essentially data dot message would go inside the sign in failure, and everything would seem to work perfectly. Okay, so now if we go to the response, okay, you can see over here we have dispatch one thing over here, which is by what I mean, sign in So basically we have dispatch. So again, dispatch, and then we have sign in success, and then data dot. Basically, you don't have to put in the user. You would just say data, and this is gonna essentially do the same exact thing. Okay, it's gonna put the data inside the sign in success, and you're essentially, this is the data that's coming, and it's essentially gonna create that user inside of that state. In the catch state, instead of this set error message, you could just say dispatch, and then we have sign in failure again, and then in here what you could say is error dot message. Okay, so we are good to go here as well. Okay, there's some other things that are concerning. So one here we have is form data, just console logging for no reason. Over here we have an error. I mean, that's okay as well. Over here we have error message, and then we have loading. I mean, it doesn't really matter because that's essentially for loading states. But what really matters is some other conditions that we have to go through. Okay, so where can we basically use this now? You might be asking, like, there's loading and other things like that, right? These states like loading, right? So I don't have to remove them and look into that. I actually could just import one other thing that could help me get this through. So we're going to use selector. So inside use dispatch, there's also one more thing that will get me the state of the thing. So use selector. Okay, and that's from React Redux as well. You have to initialize the use selector here. So let me just add const. We have, so we basically could initialize the use selector here. So in here what we could do is we could rename the loading, and basically what we want is, if I could tell you, use selector basically has this state, okay, and then you have the state, and then in here we have to put user. Why? Look, check this out. We have the user name, right? So we basically call this user right here, state.user, and we're getting a user selector. So we basically got the state, right? And what we want most concerned, we are most concerned about two different states. One is the loading state, and you already know how we're talking about. So this is loading, this one, and then the other one what we're looking at is the error one, and we have to change it to error message, because if I look at here, it's not called error anymore. So we could just say error change to error message. This is how you could rename the variable. Super easy. Okay, and then one thing I want to basically confirm here is that you can put space here as well. So look over here, error message you might see over here in the alert. So see this error message? Now it's complaining a little, but once this works, set error message. So we have to fix this one out too. We're gonna fix this one, which is line 23. I'm just gonna put a breakpoint here. Over here what we have is error message. Yeah, so error message with one more S. Okay, now this is good. Now over here on the bottom, which is right here, you can see that when there's no email or no password, you could just dispatch another one. So you could say return, and then we have dispatch, and then we have sign in failure, and then we have in here we have please fill all fields. Okay, so no need for this breakpoint anymore. And I think everything else seems to go right, because now we have that error, and so loading and the error message states could just be configured with this use selector thing. So we basically reversed it, and we're using all of these states, variable things, instead of what we created here in it, right? So now let's go and test this out. I believe everything is running. Okay, so everything is running. Let's go back here, and there is some kind of issue. So let's go to the inspect place, and over here let's look at the console. Okay, the first error we see over here in the bottom, we have uncon type error, cannot destructure property loading of use selector, okay, as it is undefined. Okay, check this out. This is line number, what line number it is. It tells us that it's 12. Okay, line number 12. So line number 12. Okay, so over here we have loading. What do we have here? Loading. Okay, so we have loading, and then we have error message. I don't know why this is not working. It should work. So loading and error message, you go to use selector, state, and state.user. I don't know. Let me just remove that. I know it's gonna complain even more now. So refresh, inspect, network tab, sorry, console, cannot destructure property, error of use selector. So there was actually a big issue what I was doing. I forgot to actually import my user slice over here, so I had to import my user slice. So user slice from from the user slice folder that I created. So dot slash, so come on, what happened, dot slash, and then we have user, and then we have user slice.js, and we basically put the user slice in here. So we had to put user : user slice. That's how this reducer was gonna work. So now when we were trying to run this, now there's all those errors that were there are all gone. So we have the requester module Redux user slice does not provide an export name user slice. So we're gonna have to go here, and over here we have to say, well, a user slice.js. If we look into this, we have just user slice. So we say, whatever the slice is. So we just say user slice. So like this, and we say that from there. Okay. Anyways, let's just open it up. Okay, and now we're good. Now we're good to go. Now, if you look into this thing, we want to first of all see how this is gonna work. So let's go to this extension that I would recommend getting, and this is called Redux. Okay, and you click on this one, which is this one, Profiler. Okay, so 1 minute. So this extension, there's this extension. 1 minute. It's called this one, Redux DevTools, to left to right. I'll put it to the right. Okay, and then you could see this one. Essentially, it looks like this, but it comes with the inspect as well. I mean, it's got to be over here, Redux. Yeah, this one. So right in here now, if I provide my info, right now you could see that there's this MERN blog, and over here we have state. This is the state that we are looking at currently. So this is now it's working. So you can see current user is null, error is null, and loading is false. Okay, so now let's see if I put my info, and suppose if I give a wrong info, right? So you can see that it went to the failure case. So it was sign in start, sign in failure, and then sign in failure. So you could see over here right now, you could scale through this, and you could see what how your thing went. So essentially invalid password was the thing, and set loading is not defined. Okay, so there's some kind of problem with set loading too. Let's go back to the application. I believe we forgot somewhere to put the set loading thing. So sign in. Let me just see. Yeah, right here. So I believe I don't know why I randomly had set loading here. We could just remove that because we don't need it anymore. So rest everything looks good. And let's go back here, refresh it once more, and look at this state, which is nothing, right? Current user. All thanks to this thing, what we did over here. So we got the user : and then got the user slice. Okay, we could name that anything. We didn't have to put the squiggly brackets because that basically destructures it. It's not, we're creating this name ourselves because we said in user slice we could by default user slice means we could give any name to it. We got user slice and we put it as like that. Okay, so that's the reducer here. Let's go and now put the right thing. So this is the right email and password. We're gonna have to go through different states. One in sign in start, sign in success, right? We just have to go through two. So over here, when I go in this, you can see sign in start and sign in success. Perfect. And you can see right now we currently have this info, which is in the current user field, and then in the error we have null, and then the loading we have full. It's super good, super awesome, and we don't have the password because we already said that, you know, with the payload thing is going inside there. The problem with this is right now, suppose, I don't know why I randomly did that, but if I go to the inspect again, now if I go to the Redux and click on here, right now you can see now it's gone, right? Because I think I was signed out, but let's see one more time. So 1, 2, 3. Now look at this. Now we have it in here, right? But when I refresh this page, it goes back to null. This is the problem, and we need Redux persist for this.